Hello everyone, my name is Francis Uche. In this video, I will explain the Antichrist, who he is and how he operates. Bible told us in Revelation that he will raise his head before the judgment, meaning that he is already here with us and must have reached the zenith and crescendo of his dominion before the judgment. I will also explain the divine insignia, the supernatural signs that will appear in sky when the cosmic clock booms the hour of 12 and will be visible to those who may be privileged to have their spiritual eyes opened. I will also explain the two colors that will be fundamental for judgment. These two colors will be used by the SWOT trust, which is the radiation of God, to determine who has lived in accordance with the will of God and who has not. I will also explain the mark of the beast, 666, what this mark means, how to identify who has this mark, and how to free oneself from having this mark. But before I do all this, I would like to explain the Adam and Eve story, which has a link with the Antichrist. The Adam and Eve story has been misunderstood, misrepresented, and interpreted mentally and intellectually instead of spiritually. Because Bible is a spiritual work and must be understood with spiritual knowledge and understanding. This was why the author of Grail Message, Abdrushim, said, and I quote, that only he who recognizes and perceives that the spiritual world really exists and is in vital activities can have the key to the understanding of the Bible. For this alone will make the word come to life. To all others, it will remain a book with 7 seals. In the same vein, the Lord's spiritual movement has it that it is not a sin but a duty for every man who is approaching maturity and thus becoming a fully responsible being to begin to think of what he has been taught till then. Those things he cannot return out of conviction, he must leave alone. Otherwise, his thoughts and actions will become hypocritical. Having said this, in creation of God, man or woman, manhood or womanhood, can only be recognized based on the nature of activity it engages. And that species that is active, positive, coerced, and most suitable for this gross material part of creation tends to clothe itself in male body. And that species that is passive, negative, and has finer, more delicate intuitive perception tends to clothe itself in female body. Therefore, Adam means masculinity. All men in creation, a species that is active, positive, coerced, and most suitable for this gross material part of creation. Eve means femininity, all women in creation, a species that is passive, negative, and has finer, more delicate intuitive perception. Because of this finer, more delicate intuitive perception, women are psychically stronger than men. There are 2 sons, Cain and Abel. Cain means human intellect, the poisonous product of Lucifer. It also means intellectual life, earthly life, material life, mundane life. Abel means spiritual life. Cain killed Abel means earthly life, material life, intellectual life, mundane life has killed spiritual life. And human beings, being spiritual in nature, are meant to live a spiritual life here on earth in order to mature inwardly. And through the experiences, they could develop the ego consciousness needed for them to go back to paradise as conscious spirits who have fulfilled their purpose of existence and will be serving the Almighty Father perpetually in joyful activities for all eternity. But man, in his ridiculous vanity, conceited arrogance, and boundless stupidity, decided to toe the wrong path that leads downwards to darkness, to evil, by overcultivating his intellect, and completely subordinated himself to it, thereby cutting off all channels that lead upward to the light. This overcultivation of human intellect and complete subordination to it was the biblical eating from the tree of knowledge, was also the hereditary sin, because after so many years, every child born into this world came with him or her a more developed, a more advanced frontal brain than the back brain. This was why Albert Einstein said, and I quote, that the intuitive mind is a sacred gift and rational mind is a faithful servant. But we have created a society that honors the servant and has forgotten the gift. And what is that gift? The sacred gift. It is this back brain, the intuitive brain, the spiritual brain. It is supposed to be the master, the driving power, because it contains the key that can make contact with the living power of God. And that key is the intuitive perception. Intuitive perception is the voice of the Spirit, the sacred altar in every human being, the only place in human body that can make direct contact with the living power of God, the only place where hunches, inspirations, luminous messages from above can reach man. This is the only place where everything that cannot be explained by the rule of science can be explained, because science, being a product of human brain, is limited in its perceptive capacity. But intuitive perception is eternal. It transcends beyond earthly time and space. But man, in his rigidity and obstinacy, decided to limit himself by overcultivating his intellect, which is earthly, which cannot understand anything spiritual. And this is why we are stuck. We became earthbound, and we continue to rigmarole in an endless simulation of hocus-pocus nonsense as a result of the unrestricted rule of the intellect. Having said this, I told you in the beginning that the story of Adam and Eve has a relationship with the Antichrist. And what is that relationship? The human intellect. Antichrist lurks behind the human intellect to perpetrate his sinister and evil activities. And who is an Antichrist? An Antichrist is a fighter against Christ and man's redemption in God's message. And no creature in creation has the power and might to become the Antichrist except Lucifer, the fallen archangel who was sent by God to come and help human spirits develop properly at the early stages of human development. But he introduced the principle of temptation instead of principle of supporting help. And that was his downfall. His wings grew heavy. He could not fly back to his divine origin. He became a spirit with volition, and coupled with his divine origin, he became the strongest spirit in the world of matter. And since that time, he has been fighting all divine envoys, all divine messengers, all divine messages. He acquired this name Antichrist as a result of his hostile struggles against Christ, against man's redemption in God's message. He could not fight Christ directly, but he used what every human being has to fight Christ. and that is human intellect. Antichrist lurks behind human intellect to carry out his sinister and evil activities. The religious leaders at that time, the men of intellect, did not reconcile with Christ's teachings and his messages. They saw him as a threat to their earthly power and influence. They therefore conspired, released a notorious armed robber, and murdered the Son of the Almighty Father, their Creator and God. And so Christ was murdered by the religious leaders at that time. And Antichrist can be found in churches, in mosques, in hospitals, in banks, in government, in business premises, in individual human beings. So long as you are a servant of Antichrist, so long as you are a slave of the intellect, so long as you do not want to know anything that is above time and space, so long as you do not want to know anything concerning spiritual life, so long as you do not want to recognize the eternal laws of nature and how to live in accordance with these eternal laws, you are an accomplice in the fight against Christ and thus an Antichrist. I also talked about the divine insignia, the supernatural signs that will appear in sky when the cosmic clock booms the hour of 12, and will be seen by those who may be privileged to have their spiritual eyes opened. These supernatural signs are the cross of creation, the cross of truth, not the cross of Golgotha, the one they used in the crucifixion of our Lord Jesus Christ, for that one was the cross of suffering. The cross I'm talking about is a cross of equal arms and equal length. It has a vertical beam and a horizontal beam inscribed in a circle. The vertical beam represents man in creation, and the horizontal beam represents woman in creation. And also the holy dove that appeared when our Lord Jesus Christ was here on earth. These are the divine insignia, the supernatural signs that will appear in sky when the cosmic clock booms the hour of 12 and will be seen by those who may be privileged to have their spiritual eyes opened. I also talked about the two colors that will be fundamental for judgment. These two colors are the violet color. Violet color is for those who have channeled all the energies, all their intuitive volition towards positivity, towards purity, towards nobility, towards ideal, towards light. They will always radiate and they emit this violet color. And the second color is dull yellow color. This is the color for those who have channeled all the energy, all their intuitive volition towards negativity, towards evil, towards darkness, towards ignominious and base propensities. They will always radiate and emit this dull yellow color. Therefore, which color are you radiating now? And will continue to radiate on the moment of final decision, to be saved or to be destroyed? The choice is yours. But take inventory of your life and determine which color you are radiating now, and make haste while the sun shines. I also talked about the mark of the beast, 666. In the creation of the Almighty Father, everything swings in numbers, and 666 is the number in which evil or sin swings in creation. And so whoever that does evil to his neighbor, whoever that harbors jealousy, malice, envy, lustfulness, unfaithfulness, unforgiveness, and some other evil, has this mark of the beast in him or her. And how can one free himself from this mark of the beast? By changing inwardly for good, making everything you think and do into a service to God. For this is the only panacea, the only oasis in the desert of last hope, for man to wriggle himself out of the clutches of darkness, out of the chaotic and turbulent environment, out of the political instability and the economic doldrum ravaging the entire mankind. This video will not be complete if I do not mention the 3 principles that will help anyone who wants to toe the path of truth, justice, and light. These 3 principles are: in pursuit of your earthly needs and activities, ensure that 1. Whatever you do does not constitute nuisance to your neighbor. 2. Whatever you do does not infringe or trample on the fundamental rights and freedom of other human beings. 3. Ensure that whatever you do does not negate the eternal laws of nature. Once you are sure of these 3 principles, you can beat your chest, jump up, and tell yourself you are on the right track. Finally, in humility, I am asking you to please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more spiritual enlightenment videos that will always explain the truth about life and existence, that will always explain those things that have remained an enigma to mankind as a result of the bastardization, mutilation, and the distortion of the teachings and works of Christ. I do know, and I am convinced, that very soon, that pill bottle that contained antidepressant and some other drugs will be thrown away, because you must have gotten the real knowledge that will help you fix your life and achieve your purpose of being allowed to exist in this wonderful creation of the Almighty Father. Thank you, and God bless.